This is an incidental passage from Freddy and Ignormus. Mr. Bean has set up a swing for the animals, and they're trying it out. Charles liked swinging so much that they had a hard time getting him to give the other animals a chance at it, but finally he got down and Jinx jumped on the seat. So Mrs. Wiggins swung him, and she swung Robert and Georgie, the two dogs, and Henrietta, Charles's wife, and Minx, who said that in South America they used to swing on long trailing creepers that hung from the trees 100 feet long or more. And then Mrs. Wiggins said she guessed she'd tried herself if Hank, the old white horse, would swing her. Mrs. Wiggins had some trouble getting into the swing, partly because she was so big, and partly because she got to laughing. But Robert and Georgie held the seat, and she got in finally, and Hank started to push her. Everybody thought she'd get scared when the swing began to go, but she didn't. "Land's sakes, it's just like flying," she said. "Swing me higher, Hank." And then as the swing swooped down, "Whee!" she yelled. Well, it certainly was quite a sight to see. A cow flying through the air and up among the green apple boughs, and Lisa has an illustration of that. Although, of course, Minx said she'd seen cows performing on a trapeze many times in Holland. But it came to a very sudden end, for just as Mrs. Wiggins was coming down on the highest swing yet, and it started to shout, "Whee!" again, around the corner of the cow barn dashed Freddy. He hadn't seen what was going on, and without knowing it, he ran right across the path of the swing, and Mrs. Wiggins hit him squarely. Her hind legs shot up under him, and he was scooped up as a ball is scooped up by a golf club and tossed right over the ring of animals who were looking on into a very large and very thick and very prickly barberry bush. Everybody said, "Oh my goodness," and ran over to the bush. And Minx began telling about a pitch she knew in Mexico where jumped into a prickly pear which had much longer thorns than barberry, and which, "Oh, keep still, sis," said Jinx. "Nobody cares about your old pig. We've got to see if Freddy's hurt." And just then Freddy's head poked up out of the middle of the bush. He looked mad and scared and surprised and worried and determined. And so the animals knew he wasn't hurt, because if he had felt any pain, he couldn't have had all those other feelings too. But Jinx asked him if he was hurt, because that is the natural thing to do in such circumstances. "No, I'm not hurt," said Freddy, "but somebody else is going to be when I get out of here, playing a trick like that on me." "Nobody likes to play a trick," said Mrs. Wilkins. "You got in my sister's way when she was swinging. And, oh my goodness, that reminds me, did anybody stop her?" They all turned and looked. Sure enough, nobody had stopped the swing, and as Mrs. Wiggins didn't know how to stop it herself, there she was, still swinging back and forth and trying, as she swooped up and down, to see what had happened to Freddy. When they had stopped the swing and got Mrs. Wiggins out of it, and that wasn't an easy job either, they looked around for Freddy, but Freddy hadn't moved. His head was still sticking out of the bush in the same place. "For goodness sake," said Jinx, "are you going to stay there all night? You look like the last peach on the tree with all those leaves around you. What are you doing, writing a poem?" "I can't get out," said Freddy crossly. "Every time I move a thorn, it sticks into me in a new place. You might help a little." Jinx shook his head. "I don't know, Freddy. We'd have to tear the bush apart. And you know how fond Mrs. Bean is of it. I guess you'll just have to stay there. If you just stay still, it won't be so bad. We'll bring your meals to you." "You just wait till I get out of here, Cat," said Freddy furiously. "I'll fix you." "That's just it," said Jinx. "I guess I'll just have to wait. Oh, come along, Jinx," said Mrs. Wiggins. "Let's get him out. You've had your fun." And she began pulling at the long, thorny stems. The other animals helped her, and so, of course, did Jinx. Freddy yelled a bit, but they got him out and then looked him over carefully. "If any of those scratches are very deep," said Alice, "you should have Mrs. Bean put iodine on them." Freddy said quickly they didn't hurt a bit. "You ought to get a few more," said Jinx. "That kind of crisscross marking looks well on your skin. I always say a pattern is prettier than just a plain color." "I'll put some marks on you," exclaimed Freddy, and went after the cat who ran under the apple tree. So then Mrs. Wiggins explained what had happened and said how sorry she was and showed Freddy the swing, and he got into it to try it. And he was just getting going good with Hank to push him when he suddenly remembered that he hadn't told him about Simon. "Oh, I meant to tell you," he called. In his eagerness, he let go of the ropes, and the swing swooped up and tossed him right back into the barberry bush again. Jinx laughed until he almost fell out of the apple tree. "My goodness," he said, for Freddy's head appeared in the middle of the bush. "You certainly are persistent. I suppose you're where the word pig-headed comes from. If you want to stay in the bush, why didn't you say so, and we would have gotten you out?" Some of the other animals seemed inclined to agree with the cat, for they had all gotten more or less scratched helping Freddy out the first climb. But when Jinx came down from the tree and started tugging at the spiny branches, they went to work and got him out. "And now if you go back in," said Mrs. Wurzburger, who had pulled at a branch with her mouth and got some prickers in her tongue, "you can just stay there." But Freddy had had enough.